Hey, welcome to Mooney Reads. My name is Beck, and today I'm going to be talking about Our Dreams at Dusk by Yuki Kamatani. This is a 4-volume contemporary manga series that focuses on Tesuku, who's a high school student who is closeted but still receiving some homophobic bullying at school. He is out and stumbles across this LGBT drop-in center. And throughout the course of the series, you learn more about the people in the drop-in center, and you see kind of the relationships that he builds with them. There's not really any central romances in the same way I think that most people, like if you're used to reading yaoi or yuri, this isn't quite that. There are some couples, but that's not at the center of everything. That's not necessarily the point. I think there's a larger point made with the relationships that are happening outside of that. I really adored this series. I read it for the second time in January. The first time that I read it was last year, and I kind of spread them out throughout the year. I think I read the first couple in January, and then the next couple in the summer. But this past time, I read them basically back to back. I finished them all in a week. There's so much incredible stuff going on in this series, so I wanted to spend some time talking about it. Throughout this video, I'm not going to talk about any spoilers so far as the plot is concerned, but I do want to talk a little bit about the characters as well as the theme, because I think one of the things that compels me to this series so much has a lot to do with the themes. Like I said, this primarily focuses on the main character, Tesuku. However, there are so many characters in here. There are just 4 volumes, so you might assume that like one covers one person. And that's kind of half true because there is one character that does get primary focus in each. But there are lots of others as well, and you learn about each person's story at a different pace, which is interesting if you think about it in line with the themes. But even though there are so many characters, there are so many people at this drop-in center, I don't think that any of them really get muddled. I think that they're all very distinct. They all have their own story, their own plotline, their own backstory that are all individual. And that's really impressive, especially because a lot of them are entwined in a really interesting way. Like the pacing of what happens to them throughout the plot lines up with other folks in ways that end up being super meaningful and adding to everything thematically. Each of these characters also have their own very unique identities. There are people across the LGBT spectrum, but also they're in different phases of life. They're all different ages. The main character, Tesuku, is a high school boy who is gay, but you also have a middle schooler who's questioning their gender, and a couple that are probably in their late 20s, early 30s. And then you even have someone who's elderly. And I really love that these characters are so different, not just in terms of representation, the fact that you do see people that are that different in real life. Not everyone is the same identity or age or whatever. But it also adds to this idea, which is that everybody has their own path that they have to go on. They have their own story. They have their own agency. And you need to respect that. There are a lot of things in here looking at the nuances of friendship and learning how to honor the pace that your friends are going at and the decisions that they make, while also being supportive and nudging them in the right direction in a way that is conducive to helping them live their best life without stripping them of that agency. All of the events that end up happening in the story is definitely showing like the need for balance in that, and also balancing like your friends with yourself too. So they look at, within the LGBT community, respecting the pace that people are going at, but also dealing with like friends who might not get it, and where to stay with the people and help them along versus not taking homophobic shit. Or transphobic shit. The fact that it feels like almost every piece of this plot is lined up around this theme is just really beautiful, and I think that it's done in a wonderfully nuanced way. It definitely had a huge impact on me in a very personal way. Obviously, I think a lot of people could take from this theme just like understanding other people, but it's also been really helpful for me on my journey of like being okay with myself and kind of forgiving myself for the slower sort of journey that I've taken. Um, for reference, I didn't come out as any sort of queer until I was like 21. Didn't start doing a lot of intentional gender exploration until I was like 24. And then I didn't figure out that I didn't like men until I was almost 27. And I'm currently 28 and just turned 28. And even after figuring everything out, it's been hard, especially when reckoning with choices that you make before you totally understand yourself. It can be hard. So, seeing people in all of those stages, whether it was, similar to what I did or like totally different from how I handled it, seeing it within that context was just super important. So I think the series would do a lot of good for any queer person who's looking for manga, and anybody else, because I think that understanding that is also, just essential for people in general. But I think this could be like additionally beneficial for queer people. Hand in hand with this theme of everyone going at their own pace, I think there's also a really big theme of like solidarity and community building, especially within the LGBT community. Like I said, all these people have different identities. You've got gay people, trans people, an aro ace person. And the fact that they are different is like talked about, but not like made into a huge thing, if that makes sense. Like for instance, there's one of the characters who's questioning their gender identity, and the main character is kind of trying to understand. But the way they go about it is really good because they definitely do make the distinction between gender and sexuality. But I feel like it's all done in a really good way. What I was trying to get at here is that it's all done very smoothly. It's not something that like sticks out outside of the plot. It's all a part of the point of the book, and it all ties in together nicely. It's not like the plot is going and then they stop and make a detour to talk about LGBT identity. It's that it is all a part of the story and it's all supposed to be there, which I don't think a lot of books end up doing very well. But the way that this book did it was really smooth and really nuanced. And again, like, the way that the people interact is promoting this idea of like community building. And I also think that it serves to highlight the ways that people's experiences can be really relatable, like even if you don't share an identity 100%. And there are multiple examples of this, but one that I saw that I connected to my own personal experience is the way that Tesuku and Daichi interact. Tesuku's the main character. He's a gay boy. Daichi is a lesbian, and is in like a long-term committed relationship. And she's actually one of the people that he gets close to first, which I thought was interesting. I think that a lot of people would assume that you would gravitate towards someone who shares your exact identity, but that's not necessarily what happened. But I found that to be really realistic and really relatable to my own experience, because as someone growing up very closeted, like in general, but also to myself, I was trying hard as hell to not think about that. So I couldn't reach out to anything related to like sapphics or lesbians. Not that there was anything really to look into in the early 2000s. But I mean, I was internalizing shit so bad that I was like afraid to look in Victoria's Secret because of the pictures on the wall. It was bad. But I had a really big fixation on queer men, like gay men. At the time, I didn't really think very much about it, but looking back, I think that it was that I knew that there was something similar. There was something that I was like reaching for. So I was able to connect to them more. A piece of that is also maybe a gender thing. But I also think that it can be easier when you are dealing with internalized homophobia to reach out to people who are like similar but have something super different, like reaching out to someone who might be a different gender than you. I'm not saying it's a universal experience, but it's definitely an experience. It's one that I had, and I thought that how the book represented it was really good, and I thought that it also fit into this theme of queer people kind of understanding each other and having some sort of shared experience, while also having some like significant differences and still wanting to make connections regardless. Hopefully I'm articulating this all right. All of this is to say there were a lot of nuances within these themes and within these experiences that I think Yuki Kamatani just gets beautifully. So those are the two primary themes that I wanted to point out and talk about because they meant a lot to me, and I think that those are really compelling reasons to read the book. But before I close out, I do want to talk about some of the content warnings, because as important as I think the experience of reading the series is, and it could be for a lot of people, there is a lot of intense stuff, a lot of intense emotions, and right out of the gate, the first book, it starts out with Tesuku being harassed and bullied and outed, and then he is suicidal walking through the town and almost commits suicide. So up at the front, it's really intense. There's also a lot of homophobia and transphobia throughout the whole thing. Some of it's bullies, but some of it's also internalized homophobia and transphobia. And some people direct it towards themselves, but some people direct it towards others. So there's a fair amount of that. There's a lot of the F slur. Outside of all of that, in the last book, I would also put a trigger warning for cancer. One of the characters deals with someone in their life who has cancer, and it's one of the big parts of one of the plots in it. So definitely a warning for that. So that is all that I have for this little discussion review thing. If you've read Our Dreams at Dusk, definitely let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. And if you have any manga recommendations or general book recommendations based off of how I felt about this series, definitely let me know about those too. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye.